What's up guys, Andrew Baina here, and on today's video I'm going to be showing you all a generic metalcore song that I wrote. In addition to showing you the song that I wrote, I'm also going to be teaching you the techniques that I used to write this song. So if you are struggling with songwriting, or if you're new to songwriting, these are some pretty easy tips that anyone should be able to use in their own song. This song was written in drop C on a 6-string guitar because, of course, I have the most generic metalcore guitar of all time, which is an LTD EC1000. This guitar was all over so many metalcore bands' albums and still is. It's an amazing guitar, but it's definitely, good for writing a generic song. So without further ado, here is what the song sounds like. Be sure to stay tuned if you're interested in songwriting tips. Let's go. Alright, so that was my short, generic metalcore song. I'm sure it sounds like a million other bands you heard, and that was the point. So we're going to go over some of the techniques that I used to write this song, and I'm going to explain them in hopefully an easy to understand way so that you guys might be able to use them in your own songs. Maybe if you're new to writing songs, this might be helpful to you. Okay, so before I get into the discussions of the techniques that I used in this song, I want to first and foremost mention, as always, that I don't actually have any formal training in music theory. So if you know about music theory, I apologize if I use any incorrect term. I am just trying to explain what my brain tells me I'm doing when I'm doing it, not necessarily the correct music theory terminology. Hopefully it's easy to understand for all of you. And yeah, whether you know music theory or not, you should be able to follow along. So we're gonna start off at the beginning of the song with that intro riff. This is a very simple riff. All of the riffs in this song are very simple. So the first one is doing what I like to call an octave riff. So essentially it's jumping between 2 octaves. So basically what I mean by octave is if you play the 12th fret, that is an octave below your open string. Or alternately, if you want to play the 5th fret on your 2nd string, either way, it's the same thing. Basically, you're jumping between the open C and then the octave below the C. Just like that. So that's pretty much the basis for this intro riff, which also comes back later in the song. So I'm going to show you guys how to play this intro riff along with some tabs on the screen so you can follow along. Again, this is in drop C tuning, which is C, G, C, F, A, D on a 6-string guitar, and this is how you play the intro riff. So we're going to go through that one more time, but a little faster. Okay, so that's pretty much how you play the intro riff. Like I said, it's really easy, and the main technique to focus on there is just jumping between the 2 octaves. Again, this is used all over metalcore, so you can definitely make use of this in your song. Okay, so next up we're gonna move on to riff number 1 of the song. This one mostly focuses on palm muting and down picking, so try your best to down pick as much of this as possible, if not all of it. It definitely gets a little tiring on your wrist if you're not used to it. I personally don't down pick this much either, so it's even a little tiring for me. So don't worry about it if you need to cheat a little bit and do alternate picking. However, it definitely does sound better if you down pick, so try your best to do that. So this is how riff number 1 is played, again with tabs on the screen and slow, and it sounds like this. And one more time, but a little faster. Okay, so that's pretty much it for riff number 1 in terms of the rhythm guitar. It just does this over and over and over. However, I do want to mention that because this riff repeats 4 times, what I did on repetition 3 and 4 to add a little bit of variation into it and make it sound a little bit more interesting is 2 things. Number 1, I changed up the drums, so you'll notice that halfway through the riff, the drums change to like a double kick pattern, whereas the first half does not do that. Again, this is just a nice way to break up a repetitious part of a song, and it's really easy to do, especially if you're programming drums. You know, just change the drums, easy. The second thing I did is I also added a very slight background lead guitar part. I wouldn't really call it like a solo or anything like that, obviously. It's more of just like a nice background layer that fills in some of that ambient space. And basically all I'm doing there is playing, again, the octave up from the low chords that I'm doing down here, more or less. So the way that you play that is like this. Again, tabs are going to be on the screen. Okay, so like I said, it's a really easy lead that goes in the background. One thing to note with this is I would advise switching to your neck pickup just to, again, differentiate it a little more from the rhythm tone. And in addition to that, as you can hear, it actually has a ton of reverb and delay, and you can't actually hear the pick attack basically at all. Again, you just want to create an ambient layer in the background that really fills in the space. So next up, we are moving on to riff number 2. Now, riff number 2 is more or less the same as the intro riff that we had at the beginning of the song, except with a slightly different ending. It's really important to do things like this where you basically bring back earlier parts of the song into the song again. Often you would use like the intro and the verse as the same riff, for example. It gives listeners a sense of repetition that makes it a little easier to follow along with what's going on in the song, if that's what you're going for. Obviously, if you want to write something crazy technical, you probably won't be watching this video anyways. So with all that being said, this is how you do riff number 2. Again, it is very similar to the intro riff. Just pay attention to this last bar especially. This is how you play it. So again, like I said, it's very similar to the intro. The only main difference is that last bar. Like so. So we're gonna play the whole thing again, but a little bit faster, and it sounds like this. Okay, so that's how you play the entirety of riff number 2. We're almost done the song. Next up, we are moving on to what I like to call the build-up. This is actually only 1 bar. So essentially what we're doing is we are repeating the same bar that we just did, which is this. That, which was the outro of the previous bar. So we're gonna do that again, except move everything up by 3 frets to create a harmony. So it's gonna be like this. So again, if we take the last bar of the previous riff along with this build-up riff, all together it sounds like this. So again, it's pretty simple. Basically, you're just doing the exact same hand motions and picking patterns, except moving it up 3 frets. If you want to create an actual harmony, of course, the left guitar would be doing this, and the right guitar would just do the same thing twice. But having the 2 guitars at the same time playing different things obviously is what creates the harmony. So that sounds really good when you have guitars that are panned left and right, which is how every recording ever is done. So trust me, harmonies sound awesome. Okay, and last but not least, we're at the final part of the song, which is what everyone wants to hear. Of course, it is the breakdown. So this doesn't really use any techniques that are different than anything we've done so far. We're kind of just back to palm muting and down picking as hard as you possibly can without the strings going out of tune, of course. And the other interesting thing, I guess, about this part is kind of what I was saying with the repeat of the intro. This is also kind of a variation of the intro, but it's different enough that it doesn't sound the same. So again, like I was saying earlier, repetition is great, but too much repetition is bad. So an easy way to remedy this is by adding things that are almost the same, but have enough variation to sound like a new riff. So you'll hear what I mean. I'll play the intro riff and then the breakdown back to back, and you can see that they're very, very similar. So for example, the intro sounds like this. And the breakdown sounds like this. So when you play them back to back like that, you can especially see just how similar they actually are. The breakdown is more or less the exact same as the intro riff, except of course it's palm muting using full chords and also using about half as many strums. So this is how you play the breakdown slowly with tabs on the screen. And this is how you play it a little bit faster. And again, just to really drive this point home, on that breakdown we're doing, which is very similar to same exact notes. Once again, octave lower, full chords, palm mute. So that pretty much covers the whole song and what techniques I was focusing on in each section. Again, these are nothing too fancy, but if you're a beginner to writing your own songs, I hope this helps in some degree. All right, guys, that'll do it for this video. I hope it was somewhat informative and useful to you guys. Again, I know for anyone who is already writing their own songs, this might not be the most informative thing because you probably already know how to do this, but if you're brand new to songwriting and recording, this might be useful to you. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give my channel a subscribe, check out my other videos. I also want to give a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters whose names are on the screen at this point in time. If you guys ever want audio downloads, guitar tabs, a shout out on the screen, or stems, you can find all of that over on my Patreon page. So please go check it out. That's also going to be linked in the description. And once again, if you're interested in any of the plugins or gear that I use in this video, that's also going to be linked in the description and in the pinned comment. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.